freedom is the right to tell what they do not want to hear. CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. Tired of the same repetitive government narratives? Then wave goodbye to the distractions and rhetoric of corporate media. For this is Anti-Media Radio.
I want to get the language right. The big government is in trouble.
You're all a bunch of slaves! Bunch of slaves!
What we need in the United States is not violence and lawlessness, but is love and wisdom and compassion toward one another.
What's your definition of media?
And now, here's your host, S.M. Gibson.
My name is S.M. Gibson, and this is Anti-Media Radio, your alternative to the corporate narrative and the mainstream agenda. It is November the 19th, 2015. So far in the United States, in 2015, there have been 1,053 so far by police officers. There have been 112 officers who have passed away in the line of duty. City of Chicago, with their strict gun laws, has seen 2,679 people shot so far this year, 446 homicides. And Saudi Arabia, America's great, wonderful allies, has executed at least 151 people so far this year, the majority of those by beheading. Join with us in the studio tonight, with us always, is our producer, Mr. Shannon Madden. Shannon, how you doing?
Good evening, Mr. Gibson. How are you?
Can't complain. As well, we are joined in the studio by Mr. Kevin Knight. Kevin, how you doing?
Hey, buddy. Doing great. Good to be back with you guys again.
So, yeah, there is a lot going on in the news right now. I kind of rushed through the stats at the beginning of the show. It's sad. I'm just so used to kind of repeating these horrific numbers all the time and getting used to, over 1,000 people have been killed by cops. But tell you what, I want to bring on a special guest real quick just for a few minutes here at the top of the show. One of our fantastic writers and editors, Miss Carrie Wedler, has put up a video on antimedia.org, as well as a video posted to YouTube. The title of the video is What Every American Needs to Know About Radical Islam. Carrie, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Can't complain. So, for anybody that hasn't seen it yet, tell everybody real quick what's going on with your video here.
Sure. So I make YouTube videos. Before I got into anti-media, that's sort of how I started my activism. And I do a variety of different content, and sometimes I just have to make a video. I get so frustrated with things. As much as I love writing for anti-media, videos sort of allow a little bit more of a variety of expression. And I happen to have a lot of followers from my video endeavors that, this is a long story I'm not going to get into, but I have a lot of followers who tend towards the right-wing sphere of the political spectrum. And
if you don't know, real quick, for those who don't know, Carrie is the Obama burn my shirt girl, because I'm throwing a fit because Obama, he didn't work out the way I thought he would.
So essentially, from blowtorching an Obama shirt, I got a bunch of followers who missed all of the content of the video, which was anti-war and, everything we talked about is anti-media. But a lot of people see a girl burning a shirt and they go, oh, I like her and she hates Obama. Okay. And then they get very angry with me when I find out that I'm not like a right-wing Republican. So I had a lot of reaction to that on my public page. tragedy in Paris, you know, just, it's a horrible tragedy, and I'm really sad for all the people who are about to be collectivized. And I started getting all this hate from people who were spewing, like, straight up lies. Like, I come from a liberal background, and so I'm very aware of, like, all the liberal rhetoric and the liberal talking points, but I never really, like, endeavored into the right wing. So it's always just mind-blowing to me when I hear people just spouting lies they hear on TV. Like, there was this one guy, and he goes, Muslims don't apologize. And I give him a link of, like, I give him multiple links of Muslims apologizing for all the attacks done in their name, which honestly, I don't think that's their job to do. But because of the climate, they feel compelled, and it's a really nice gesture. So I just got a lot of pushback from that, and it's like I give these people facts, and they just, like, sort of redirect. They just ignore all of the facts I give them and redirect. And so the video I made was really just trying to debunk a lot of the propaganda going around. And so all I did is I just took 10 examples of things Americans and their allies have done, and I replaced it with Islamic extremists, and then I flipped it around and let the people know that it was actually their own government that did that. And I have inspired a lot of hate, but also a lot of support, so that's encouraging because a lot of people see through the propaganda at this point.
Yeah, I know that it's already going pretty viral off the page today. It's a great video. I think it's one of your best that you've done. Real quick, kind of go through some of the examples so people know what you're talking about. And for anybody that hasn't seen this video yet, go to antimedia.org. Or you can go to our Facebook page.
It's absolutely wonderful. You need to check it out.
It's pinned to the top of the Facebook page right now as well.
Thank you. Some examples, let's see. Well, one of the examples I give is Islamic extremists shot down a civilian airliner filled with hundreds of civilians. Turns out that wasn't terrorists. That was actually the American government. They shot down an Iranian plane in 1988 filled with civilians. They ended up claiming it was an accident, but it's funny because I think it was 5 years earlier, the New York Times had written an op-ed piece condemning Russia for shooting down a passenger airplane. And, you know, they had scolded Russia saying there's absolutely no excuse for this. There's absolutely never a reason to shoot down a civilian plane, but come the U.S. military shooting down an Iranian jet filled with civilians and silence. Nobody said anything. So that's one of the examples. I had to throw in the Madeleine Albright example of saying it was worth it to starve 500,000 children. That was sort of what I put in for people who sort of already have my view to recognize I was, like, playing a trick, you know, because I didn't want the people who were actually rational about not collectivizing people to turn it off. Like, I was hoping people would pick up on that. But there's all sorts of examples. There was a Christian militant in the Central African Republic last year who beheaded a Muslim out in the streets. But if you switch it out and you say a Muslim beheaded a Christian, well, that's huge news. But it's funny because even Fox News had reported this. I linked in the video to a Fox News article. So, I mean, even the propaganda masters are acknowledging these things, but I think it's just the cacophony of sound demonizing Muslims is so loud that the smallest little story slips through the cracks when it goes the other way. So I just wanted to highlight that to show that all violence is wrong. It doesn't matter why you're doing it or where you're doing it. It's all wrong. It's all killing people. None of it is legitimate. And I think a lot of Americans on the right tend to forget that, because one of the things that upsets me most is it just blows my mind. We have these Christian people talking about how their God is peaceful and how their religion is peaceful, and in the same Facebook comment, they're saying we need to level the Middle East parking lot. So it's like, what's the point of having a peaceful God if you're not going to follow him?
Oh, that's what infuriates me more than anything. I scream and yell about it.
The grossest one I've seen, what was it? The 72 virgins, well, here, I'm going to send you to meet them, and it's a picture of a military personnel with a big gun in their hand, and yeah, it is absolutely insane.
So, Carrie, what do you want people to take away from this video for people that aren't maybe familiar with your work, or just somebody seeing it, just coming across it, you know, through their Facebook feed or something? What do you hope the average person takes away from it?
I mean, I like to think that the average person isn't violent and they aren't really calling for the death of all Muslims. I think there's sort of this gray area or this in-between where a lot of people rest, where they sort of know that they're being lied to, but at the same time, they're still kind of afraid of the lies. You know, they hear that ISIS is trying to sneak across the border into the United States through Honduras, and they flip out. And so what I wanted to do really was just take those people who might be in the gray area, or maybe who even are spouting the lies that they heard on TV, and just sort of force them to question what they've been believing, because I think it's really hard to justify violence on your military's behalf, on your government's behalf, when the people you allegedly hate and that your government is fighting for, you know, all that is good and holy are, you know, they're doing the same thing. So I really just want to sort of level the playing field, I guess, in the way people perceive violence and ideology and how that plays into world affairs.
And something very important, too, I think definitely flipping the propaganda around and, people coming to terms that this is just, fear that's being created, and that we're no better than the next person. We're all here human. But I tell you what, I know you've got to get on. I know there's some other people waiting to talk to you this evening. But thank you so much for calling in tonight. And for everybody who hasn't seen that video, please go check it out. It's what every American needs to know about radical Islam. And it is on antimedia.org right now.
With that, man, go subscribe on YouTube. Go get you some.
Thank you so much, Carrie.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, you guys.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
Take care.
Bye.
So, great video. I think it really speaks to a lot of people talking about some of the destruction that, the U.S. government's been a part of, and when we turn around kind of hypocritically saying, well, you did this or you did that. When she was talking about that, it kind of reminds me of some of the recent Putin speeches. One in particular that he said came to mind when...
so wait a minute, are we friends with him now? Or
no, I don't think so.
He's a friend of me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's complicated. Their Facebook status is it's complicated right now.
It really is, because I've seen on Facebook and on social media a lot of pro, your hardcore right, super uber right wing conservatives are suddenly popping up.
They're coming
towards rooting for authoritarianism.
Cute little Putin memes, and hey, if Obama, you can't get it done, we've got a guy that can. And
it's crazy thinking like it's more the right wing that's going towards him. It's very
like
bizarre.
5 years ago, they were demonizing the man and were ready to see him hang right along with Saddam Hussein.
It's true, but I tell you, it kind of goes back to the comment I was going to make about him. Something he said to a BBC reporter was it was brought up basically as that he's the aggressor and he's an aggressor, and he basically starts laughing. He's like, are you kidding me? I'm the aggressor. He says, I've got 2 military bases in the world. He's like, they're in Afghanistan. They were asked to be there. And the United States has military bases all over the world, over 100. It's to preserve military infrastructure. And he's like, I'm the aggressor, and I have 2 military bases, and they're all over the world to preserve military infrastructure. He's like, give me a break. He's like, are you crazy? But
he brings up a good point with that, and at the same time, we got to remember that he's still, everything that we see is packaged for our eyes, and so we're either getting the Russian state's impression of the role that they want us to see of Hitler, or we're getting the U.S.'s version. So no surprise that there's a big contradiction, even between what some of, like you mentioned, some of our right wing friends think, and what some of our larger media is showing. They're not so much. I think they're even having, to an extent, a little battle, because the official story is we should hate Russia because, of course, they invaded Ukraine, or trying to invade Ukraine, Crimea area, and of course they're fighting ISIS. So according to the U.S. government, they should be our enemy, and we shouldn't be in any kind of favor, which I'm personally not. He's still an ex-KGB, and he's still the head of a tyrannical authoritarian state.
Oh, yeah. And let us not forget, he was invited into Syria by the Syrian government.
He was.
We, the United States, were not. Try that on for size.
Yeah, good point.
But we're there for freedom, and he's there,
And he's there apparently
because he hates us he hates us for our freedom. So
that's why he waited till he was asked.
He was there for the same reasons that we were there, and he's actually been fairly successful.
That man has $70 billion. He ain't nobody for their freedom. He's got all the freedom he could ever have, and then some.
Right. Syria, one of their ambassadors, I believe it was, said that they think they've got over 1 million refugees that are actually returned to Syria since Russia started their bombing campaign. If that continues, and I was speaking to a friend of mine who's from Russia, who's actually telling me that he thought the same thing, that the reason that Russia had actually chose to get involved at this point is because they don't want to face the blowback that some of your other countries are seeing by what they see as blowback as far as a massive force, I won't say force, but an immigration crisis, no matter which way you look at it. So apparently that his belief, and there's some that out there that think that that's the reason why Russia is acting regardless. Who can say that they're not doing way more than the U.S. And NATO combined? Still probably trying to not surprising. Assad's still in power, and he's got to go, of course, according to the U.S. So I think that's probably a little bit of the reason that we're taking so long to do anything against ISIS.
And look, to be fair, I'm not negating any wrongdoing that Putin has done during his tenure.
Not at all. No, he's still
I'm not negating any wrongdoing that Assad has done during his tenure. And, we have...
and that's a problem, though. And it's sad that you have to reiterate that. But I don't know how many times I've had these conversations with people, and they just think, well, you think that, Assad's a good guy or something. It's like, no, I don't think that at all. But people can't hear, maybe they're a person in this situation and just think, oh, you're completely on your side, you love them.
Yeah, and then listen to the things that we talk about day in and day out on this broadcast, Nick and Lamont. Really, it just absolutely floors me. It really floors me that here we are worried about what Putin did, we're worried about what Assad did, we're worried about what this one did and what that one did, and Saddam Hussein, and so on and so forth, and down the line. And meanwhile, nobody wants to talk about what we're doing, actively doing now.
Right. Of course, you hate America if you...
Tell you what, let's go to a phone call right now and get their take on it. Area code 407, welcome to Anti-Media Radio. This is your host, S.M. Gibson. Tell us your name and where you're calling from tonight.
Yes, this is Stephen, and I'm in Orlando, Florida. I called yesterday evening as well. And I just wanted to challenge you, sir, for put up or shut up. $70 billion. You claim that President Putin, that's his wealth. You're claiming that. Okay, now you give us information that can be documented and verified that is actually 100% the truth. And not just a rumor, not just you saying it. And so I'm just challenging you to present evidence, because the most dangerous thing in the world is a bald-faced lie that's just bullhorned out into the public. Because when that happens, you know what? We get so much of that here, and because of people believing total lies, a lot of people are just murdered by our wars of aggression, like what's happening right now in Syria, which is not complicated at all, the situation, but nobody ever narrative that's documented about what is happening in Syria to be expressed in our media. And the other thing I would say, I like y'all's show. I enjoy the discussions and the topics that you guys touch upon. But, man, we got to check ourselves, because when you just believe like distortion and lies, people die, So about Putin as well, the KGB, being inside the KGB for Russians is an extremely patriotic and honorable profession.
I like being a director of the CIA,
Yeah, well, you know what? We're an imperialist country at this point in our history, and Russia has been thrown on its back, raped, beaten, told they're a piece of crap, and now they're getting off of their back, and they're doing the right things in countering our imperialism, which is about just like slaughter, murder, just a lie, bald-faced lie. We're losing respect that we once had in the world because we've been so savage and such liars. And you know what? I'm not a right winger, man, and I used to buy into the bull crap from the left. Putin bad, Putin, used to buy into it until I start watching the actions of the man, what he said, what he does. And we're so conditioned here because we got such lying politicians and such a corrupt authoritarian. We have a corrupt authoritarian corporate oligarchy that rules us, So, you know what? We have forms of democracy here, and we have forms of oppression here, and that's very much a similar situation as exists for your average person living inside of Russia. So I unapologetically support the president of Syria, and I have formed friendships with people inside of Syria. Our country, as well as France, as well as Qatar and Turkey, we've been sending mercenary jackal armies in there that take over villages, chop off heads, terrorize the population, and they entrench themselves. They infest themselves in these villages and cities for years now. And the huge majority of the people that live in Syria want the world to understand what our government and what France and all these other jackals have been doing.
I mean, I think most of us here, Stephen, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man. I think most of us here would agree with you completely in that sentiment as well. I mean, I don't think any of us are in opposition to what Russia's doing, and of course, being led by Vladimir Putin. But I think, like anybody, and again, we agree with you about the U.S. being an oligarchy, definitely. But we'd be naive to believe that from the outsider's perspective, knowing some people that actually live, that have grown up and lived in Russia, knowing the head of the Libertarian Party in Russia, where they actually do, believe it or not, have a Libertarian Party, small but active and doing well. To think that state is not also run by an authoritarian government, so to speak, and to think that their media, of course the U.S., of course the Western media wants to paint Putin as they are, that's no surprise. And of course his state is going to do the same thing to counter that. So I don't think we're necessarily opposed to what Russia's doing. So that...
Yeah, and you know what, and I respect that, and I know you guys are good guys, and you're thinkers. I am not, I've internalized things that I reflect on later. Wow, you just totally bought that BS, and you were spouting it like it was gospel. Man, and I'm 52 right now, so I learn from things. You guys are younger and so forth, so I'm not trying to say I know the total quote-unquote truth, and you guys are full of BS. But here's what I will also say about, the situation that's going on right now, which I think is very, very dangerous. One of the reasons I started reaching out to Syrian people is I met a Syrian family here and got to know them, and I'm like, wow, I'm hearing what they're saying is a lot different. And then I reached out in context within Syria, which I'm going to go to, by the way, if I can in the next in a couple months. But anyway, I was just shocked by what I was reading from the left, for years, and I'm like, wow. I started looking at the archives of what is that, and I've become, I'm not a right winger because I was always like a man of the left, quote unquote. But man, what I've seen coming from the so-called left, especially after a lot of people supporting the attack on Libya and all that, I'm just pretty disillusioned right now. And like I said, I'm not a right winger, but as I've opened my eyes, I see that there are people that are on the right that are honorable. They attempt to be truthful. They make strong, intelligent arguments. But what we get in the mainstream, like if you look at the papers or if you turn on the TV, man, we just get two sides that are, they're liars. They're in it to become millionaires, and there's very few honorable people I see on MSNBC, or Fox, even though, I lean toward the ideology which is expressed in MSNBC. At least I've opened my eyes, at this older age, I'm 52 now, I'm just starting to see like, wow, that dichotomy. I really think it's very interesting in these times, guys, because we're seeing that right really becoming like really hazy, and the foundations of this, are kind of falling apart, and younger people are seeing like they're like, you guys, you're more open to seeing like the hypocrisies on each side, whichever side you guys like fall on. But what I think is really interesting is that the ideology, Democrat, Republican, it's really becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. So I don't know where this is all going, but I'd like to hear some of y'all's comments if you see the same thing.
Absolutely. I think you're totally right, Stephen, when you talk about the ideology of Democrat, Republican, the two-party system fading away. We saw it in the last election cycle with Ron Paul getting the support he did, even though he ran as a Republican. Everybody knew that he really wasn't. You're kind of seeing the same thing right now with Bernie Sanders.
The Republican Party did too, and that's why he got cut out of the loop.
Very true. You're also kind of seeing that a little bit out of Bernie Sanders, who's an independent in Washington, and is a Democratic socialist, really. And
yeah, you know what? I'll just say this: I voted for Obama twice, and I've become so disgusted, after Libya, and then, I just become so disgusted. I wasn't going to vote, this upcoming election, and but Bernie Sanders, he strikes me as really being a phony in so many ways, and I don't think he's evil, but he wants the power and the limelight. And you know what his solution for the Middle East situation is? I couldn't believe he actually said it. Everything over to the Saudis.
Right, that's
go to their own way.
Is it the Saudis haven't got enough damage to sprinkle their some of their radical Wahhabist
influence of war around the region, and the irony is that he sells himself like he's this peace candidate, but if you turn the Middle East over to Saudi Arabia, it's going to be nothing but perpetual war still, and we'll be involved being their ally.
Hey, and you know what else, guys? You know what's really weird about that? I mean, how could you think that, how could somebody even present that? It's a really scary commentary on the level of, intelligence and being current with events. You know what? I'm not brilliant, but you know what? The best thing I ever did, the best understanding I ever came to, is when I realized I'm probably the dumbest effer you've ever met in your life.
Oh, if we all had that moment.
Well,
we all need
you know what? Because, and you know what? I think the other thing is that really is scary is when you look at the Republican candidates, and this Carson, it's like this guy's a freaking brain surgeon. And you're like, what the heck? And so
I tell you what, Stephen, we actually have to move on a little bit, but I tell you what, thank you so much for the call. Great points. Thank you, Colin, for calling in and challenging us. And thank you for listening, and thank you for supporting what we do.
Yeah, call back again, Steve.
So I think he made a really great point with Bernie. I think for that's all over with, he's going to be throwing his support over to Hillary. So, the whole phony aspect.
No surprise there.
So, it's not. I think it,
At the end of the day, he's still in the Democrat Party. He's still a collectivist.
He's still
a team player still.
He's still, playing the game. So we'll see. A lot of people don't want to admit it to themselves right now, and they're all, the Zombernies. But
a lot of those guys and girls that are so much for Bernie, this will be over. Once it goes to Hillary, it'll be a new week. They'll be back to thinking and concentrating on whatever it was before they had ever even heard Bernie's name. I'd even venture to say you can ask them, give them a couple proposals, and they couldn't tell you who said it, much less where Bernie stands on it. I think most of them, unfortunately, are just your it's fun to be a Bernie supporter right now for a lot of
very
people.
similar to Obama and
exactly.
the support he got.
Change.
People couldn't really tell you, his policies, but they knew he was younger, they knew he was cool, so it was hip to vote for him.
Right.
And I think you're seeing the same thing now, which this time around it really makes no sense because it's, a very, very, very old white man.
It's fun. Is a gray-headed older man who spoke about economics, of course, a lot different, a lot more literal, and with a lot more of a educational message and a lot less hopey-feely change. But the appeal was still there, and I think a lot of
Ron was providing people the option of freedom.
Oh, I agree completely opposite. I wouldn't compare those at all. But I think it goes to show you that people are tired of both the Republican and Democrat candidates. That they would actually even go towards.
But what a telling statement that was for Ron Paul to run and sidle up with the Republicans, even though he clearly was not, and ideologically a Republican at all.
And he's supposed to be more libertarian than a lot of
Because
libertarians.
he needed the money that comes.
I think importantly, he needed the exposure that came along with it.
Exactly.
Well, no, Ron didn't. I don't think Ron even had any whims or any surprises about or any highfalutin aspirations about necessarily running for president. Ron's always been about spreading the message, and that's what he used his platform to do. And whether or not it was to pave a way for Iran or not, he used this platform to educate the masses. So I don't think Ron's surprised that to find out that he wasn't going to be elected president. But he got his job done, and he educated millions of people and a lot of people around the world, including myself. So I'm glad that
you had a lot of people break off of that. You had a lot of people that started with Ron Paul becoming anarchists. You had a lot of people that, for whatever reason, are supporting Bernie Sanders right now.
Ted Cruz.
You got people with Ted Cruz. You got people with Rand. You got some of those people.
Party, yeah.
That's where I started out. Ironically, was the Tea Party. In fact, they hated Ron Paul for the longest time. Back when I first started doing the Tea Party. In fact, I didn't know who. Of course, I hated Ron Paul too, following lock and step with the Tea Party, not being exposed to him, but.
Did y'all ever refer to yourselves as teabaggers at any point in time? I'm just curious.
No, we didn't. In fact, that term had just started being used by some of the left. I remember, I think, the first time it had been tweeted about, or if Twitter was around back then. But
I loved it. I thought really the Tea Party should have really owned that.
I think so,
they should have took it over.
Could have made them a little logo.
Yeah, seriously.
A lot of them had tea bags. A lot of people had actual tea bags, tied to their sign. But as far as tea baggers, no, I didn't see a pair of tea bags on somebody's nose.
I remember one time.
I
remember one time when Mr. Gibson got a tea bag.
Yeah,
that's another story for another show.
I make some great tea, actually.
What is your overall take now, Shannon, of what we're doing in Syria with regards to Paris? Where do you think it's going now?
Well,
is it going?
One of the things that, and this is just an obscure fact, and it may not mean anything, but I thought it was really curious in a couple of the stories that I read shortly after the attacks, when we found out more about these extremists, that Bitcoin, they had money squirreled away in Bitcoin, right. And I don't know, after watching all of the news as it's presented to us from the left, the news as it's presented to us from the right, and sifting through these facts and sifting through these facts, and now we have all of these other places we can get information from on the internet. A lot of different people are reporting on different things and this, that, and then you have to kind of draw your own narrative these days. And one of the interesting things that just popped up out of nowhere, because it was kind of a random fact. Why was it important when all of this horrible stuff was going on in Paris? Why was it important to bring up Bitcoin?
Well, and they usually don't cover Bitcoin.
You could have just said that they had money squirreled away somewhere, or squirreled away at an offshore account, or squirreled away. No, Bitcoin. And again, cryptocurrencies is definitely something that is a threat to business as usual with the United States government. Something they can't really do anything about. And Bitcoin pops up in the middle of all of this Syria and ISIS and all of these other catchphrases for we have to take action now, money needs to be transferred here, and money needs money. Bitcoin.
How many of your Calshare listeners at home know what Bitcoin is?
PlayStation Network. If you're on the PlayStation Network playing PlayStation right now, it's fixing.
They're using Bitcoin, right?
And, Ghost.
Part of the it was reported that some of the attackers were using communication, encrypted communication through the PlayStation.
Through PlayStation.
That's when they went dark on their normal cell phones, tablets,
right.
Smartphones, on and so forth.
Well, I mentioned the WhatsApp also, which my wife and I both use. And, no surprise we're going to see more stuff going after encryption. That's the bad thing. I think encryption is going to go after, it's going to be, again, hammered as if as if you can easily download a program and you suddenly enter the world of terrorism, pornography, heck, gun running, when you probably have a much better chance of working for the federal government for a couple of years and find yourself being paid to do just that. Yeah. If you pull the right strings, of course. But that Syria is, man, there's so many different places for that to go. With the back to the Bitcoin, I personally didn't know a lot about Bitcoin until here just a few years ago. But I would wonder, at the same time, that you mentioned that, how many people know about Bitcoin? If they were to even mention Bitcoin and put it out there, you're only going to drive more people's curiosity about Bitcoin.
Well, and right off the bat, you've taken some of your simpler people that would read that story.
So I think
Bitcoin,
99.
This Bitcoin. What's this Bitcoin?
Right, exactly.
Bitcoin must be bad.
I think 99% of our listeners are going to know what Bitcoin is, but I don't think. But I don't think the random person watching TV is going to know about it. GoSec, the hacktivist collapsed and said that ISIS is holding a Bitcoin wallet worth $3 million.
Will that be seized now? I mean, can that be seized?
Can it be?
Who would be the one? They seized.
This is why I bring this up, because anytime that we have this big, giant, huge catastrophe, and then all of these other little things quietly get mentioned. Well, the attacker could have been wearing a trench coat. Then suddenly, if you're wearing a trench coat,
demonize it all.
Yeah. So let's go ahead. This thing's on our list, this thing's on our list, and this thing's on our list. Let's go ahead and try to hammer those points in, or shove those points into this horrible story, so that all of these things that we've been trying to quietly do something about, this, that, and the other, public perception will push it even further.
Rahm Emanuel.
And again, our agenda is served.
Rob.
I'm going to go ahead and jump to another caller now. Area code 775. Thank you for calling into Anti-Media Radio. I am your host, S.M. Gibson. Tell us your name and where you're calling from tonight.
Hello.
Hello?
Hello.
Hello? Hello?
Hey, you're on Anti-Media. You want to talk?
Yeah. I just want to say, this whole politics and everyone in it can suck my dick.
Say what?
Yeah, we agree, man.
Yeah, that's absolutely a great point. I agree. I didn't completely make the whole thing out, but,
I don't like politicians either for the most part, and none of those would be my first pick either. It's a good thing it's not a race, because we'd all be messed up.
It's how it sounds.
Hey, you need to get your head out of your ass.
So there's a story real quick that's up on, we've got up on antimedia.org right now. I wanted to touch on with the drone operators. I don't know if either one of y'all saw this earlier, but since the Paris attacks have happened and seemingly kind of out of guilt for their actions, 4 U.S. drone operators, former U.S. drone operators, have come out and they've written an open letter to Barack Obama, the Defense Secretary Ashton Carter, and CIA Director John Brennan. And they talk about how they killed innocent people, innocent civilians. And now they say they suffer from PTSD because of them killing innocent people. The words from the letter is, we came to the realization that the innocent civilians we were killing only fueled the feelings of hatred that ignited terrorism and groups like the Islamic State, while also serving as a fundamental recruitment tool. So what they're saying is their actions, not only were they killing innocent people, they were inspiring more radicalism. They were inspiring more terrorism. They were inspiring more terrorists. That's what people don't seem to understand. Is when you answer violence with violence, the cycle is going to continue.
But you suddenly create a cause, especially when you throw religion into the mix, and that's a lot. That's a vast majority of what we're seeing here. Versus your average Muslim that lives throughout the rest of the world and is goes on about their life peacefully and doesn't want this sort of trouble.
They also, went on and stated, this administration and its predecessors have built a drone program that is one of the most devastating driving forces for terrorism and destabilization around the world.
You know, that first quote there, that is exactly, almost word for word, what Ron Paul said. Was it the 2008 debates, 2012 debates, where he discussed blowback. And he got a few boos from people who were a little bit outside of the knowledge and didn't really have a lot of a good view of what was actually going on over there.
We have the boots on the ground,
right? And listening to the guys who are actually doing the work, explaining that blowback is such a bad word to some people. And they say that you're blaming America when you even mention that. And we're not blaming America, but there's some bad things going on, and not everybody has the same interest as freedom-loving, liberty-loving Americans have. But either way, we're listening to these guys. Who do you often hear? Who should we listen to? Should we listen to the politicians, or should we listen to the soldiers and the troops on the ground? Well, let's listen to some of the troops on the ground that are telling you that, hey, this is not working, that this is putting us and putting the homeland in more danger than what we're doing is advancing the danger at the same time, and then the federal government's answering that, following back with stomping on our civil liberties in the same.
Why does it? This is completely off topic. Why does it bother me so bad when I hear the word homeland used? I feel like every time I hear it, I feel like I'm watching a Goebbels propaganda film or something.
Right. Well, it's funny, in the Senate not so long ago, in the on Capitol Hill, if you watch. Was C-SPAN? They actually had and I want to say it was Barbara Boxer had a map.
You watch C-SPAN? Don't lie to me.
Hey, it just happened to be on. It's happened to be on, but you can find it online. But and I may be wrong, but I believe it's Barbara Boxer had it was United States, Mexico, and Canada, and it had the whole country laid out. Basically, the borders were invisible, but it was what the Department of Homeland Security labeled as the homeland. Basically, it was the priority of Department of Homeland Security, which we think is something tied to America, but now their view of the homeland suddenly became all three countries, and of course with the borders being, we've seen the Constitution freeze around the country. I'm not surprised to see it one bit, but I think it is telling that homeland continues to expand.
Well, we've heard a lot of conversation from our good friend Manny, who calls in from time to time, who has his finger on the pulse of what's going on south of the border, and has given us some rather eye-opening information that none of the mainstream media is reporting about at all.
Yeah, there's a lot more going on down there than anything we hear, and unless you know people, or you're not hearing about it in the United States.
You're absolutely not. Unless you have, again, I'm fortunate enough to have some friends from Latin America who are just absolutely freaked out about it, who live here in the States and are wondering, do I go back home and try to deal with my family, or do I stay here and see what's going to happen next, particularly with, so many presidential candidates wanting to round up all the brown people and send them
send them back.
Send them away and build up a wall on your way out.
It's been a few weeks since we've heard that, man. It's been a few weeks. I was glad to get a rest from the whole.
Well, I think it's now transferred over to the Syrian refugees, so people.
Now we really need to build a wall.
That's it. So people are getting their fear out
of
Syria right now.
Of course, the terrorists that we've found sneaking in the homes.
I wonder what someone's response would be if you said you can have Syrians coming in, or you can have people predominantly Mexican coming in. Well, what would you take? I wonder what people would say to that. Like, which one's worse to them? I think that's.
I would say most people. It's funny. You listen to people and they talk about illegal immigration, and a lot of them say, "But I know some good Mexican folks. They're good people, but in that book." People are more favorable. Would probably be more favorable to Hispanics. This coming, of course, you guys know my wife's Mexican, and so I've got some Mexican family members, and so it's funny being in a situation, especially around some right-wing people, when they either don't know or they forget, and they start spouting off about, and I get the argument from some, and I believe literally that some people do believe that strictly the idea that they are illegal is enough to make.
I think there's a lot of people that think.
Oh,
that.
right, and I understand that side of it. I disagree with it because, as we know, that not always is the law what says. If we were all.
Well, I know my forefathers came over here legally.
Right. Well, mine did too years ago. But how many of us break the law every single day for irresponsible things and and travel? And how many of us would disagree that most people that are coming across the country, that if they do it illegal, they're doing it to better themselves. So it's not always.
But people want to live in fear. That's it. That's exactly what we're seeing. More so with Syria. I mean, if it's able to surpass the other debate that we were having every single day about should we build a wall, is Trump crazy enough yet for everybody? And now everything's transferred over because they're going to blow us up. The crazy Muslims are going to blow us up. They're all radical. Do people not understand
at the same time
why they're leaving their country?
Yeah, right. That's what gets me is that people need to know that if the West and the U.S. was not bombing, supporting the groups that are overthrowing their elected leader, but their government and destabilizing their whole region, we wouldn't have a refugee problem.
Or in the case of Mexico, if America would go ahead and sensibly pretty much just about legalize all drugs across the board, say, screw it. If that's something you want to do.
And with finances, being as important as they are.
Would shut down.
We've seen that already with medical marijuana, of course, that the drug cartels in Mexico are really losing
out. So now it's
money.
heroin, but where are they getting heroin from, and why is there suddenly all this overabundance of heroin all of a sudden?
Oh, right, of course. Couldn't be Afghanistan, of course.
Now, we don't have troops over there, do we?
No, not a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Pat Tillman wasn't going to come back and explain that to the American people.
Nobody.
Freedom.
Freedom's not free.
No, it's not.
It just says free in the name.
No, it's not.
Chris Cobb, 2016. So when it comes to Syrians, though, why are people so scared? I get it.
Terrorist attack.
Well,
I get it, but
they're all terrorists, though. Every one of them
are they?
They're Muslims.
I know that's what people like. They think it though.
They've all they got bombs strapped to the women and the children and everybody. I mean, they're all coming. Every one of them are coming. They're going to blow every single American town away. The 500 million guns we have here in America ain't. Man,
the worst
ISIS is coming. They're at our doorstep.
The worst people I do believe that the worst people that could possibly do damage to this country. And I don't mean ideologically like I would say normally the politicians, which is still a great argument. The worst, most dangerous people in this country, they're foreigners, are here in this country already. So they're not. I don't see them as they're not newly radicalized people.
No, I don't think so. But let's go to another caller, area code 682. Welcome to Anti-Media Radio. I'm your host, S.M. Gibson. Tell us your name and where you're calling from this evening.
The team, and I'm calling from Fort Worth, Texas.
Fort Worth, Texas. How you doing this evening?
Hey, buddy.
I'm good. How are you guys?
Can't complain. What you got on your mind tonight?
I mean, it's just crazy just seeing all these videos from, just people pretty much just butchering themselves over nothing, just with all this ISIS talk and all this unnecessary conflict with just different cultures of people. It's really frustrating just to sit back and just have to watch, underpaid Army veterans, underpaid active duty, and that are fighting for freedom, but not getting the respect, not getting the dignity. From my perspective, I just feel that, if we all just loved one another and not had to just sit around and blow each other up pretty much, I just don't understand what's this is all about, I just feel like this is so unnecessary. It's
But you're not alone, man. It's something to remember too. I think we need to remember is that the people in this country, as many warmongers as there are, as many politicians as there are, people in those countries do not want war with other countries. I personally don't want war with Iranians or with Russians or with Syrians. You probably don't.
I know none of these guys want. It's not the people that want the wars. It may be a few individuals, but this stuff is pushed largely by all these politicians and some of these corporations.
It's a few select group of people that are very greedy and power hungry.
And they're not the majority. They're
not even close to the majority, but they control people through fear.
They are, and I think it's good that we remember, man, that just like the caller just said, I think he made a great point. I think all of us are getting so frustrated because that's all we see, and it gives the impression that it is the majority, that it's kind of hard to think otherwise, that everybody else does not share the same warmongering belief, but it's not. In fact, most people probably don't care either which way, and unfortunately, a lot of people are probably apathetic either way. Probably people don't really care. They don't feel as importantly about these issues, but
because they don't know what's happening. It's just a headline on the news that day.
That's it.
And if the news decides not to cover it, they don't even know what's going on.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it does that kind of stuff does not sell on the mainstream media. It just doesn't. But it's here in real life conversation. So I'm glad it is here, and at least it's not getting watered down. Because I would hate to be the. Can you imagine the happy-go-lucky news that the media would have us believe, and what that would be like if they chose that suddenly started, good news started selling? What good news would actually be considered tomorrow?
There's no telling. And thankfully, we have something like the internet in place where people can share ideas and information
for now.
Right.
Sure.
Yeah, exactly.
And we're already kind of seeing that coming down. We'll just see. Got to keep an watchful eye on TPP and the internet and freedom. But thankfully, fingers crossed, we're pretty okay for now, for the most part. Of course, all of our interactions are being spied on and metadata.
Yeah, of course, they're encouraging us to be able to model it because they can monitor every single thing that we do. And it's all put in your dossier, in your file, and so on and so forth, and yada yada. Facebook's recording my conversation now.
Go ahead, caller.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm listening. I mean,
it wasn't too. It brings up Anti-Media actually posted a link earlier, I believe, about or linked to a story about there's so much surveillance data. There's so much mega data. Besides the fact they're having to build this huge plant out in Arizona or Nevada, this huge plant that the CIA is recently. They were apparently surprised to find out they had all this excess information stored up with some Venezuelan oil deals. There's so much information, and we say they're recording everything, they're saving everything right now. And I know they've got systems, they've got algorithms, they've got computers, and they ping certain words, and they highlight this and they highlight that. There are so many of us out here. I think it's important to remember that we still surround them to an extent. They're using the illusion of power to make us think, and it is no joke. I mean, it is some dangerous things going on. We do have a threat to our privacy and our security, but at some point, it's against works to their detriment because it makes it harder. So, as long as we all know about it, we know there's other people like yourself out there that know that this is going on. We just have to find a positive view of it because bad press doesn't work with your friends, but it sure does sell news.
I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't mean to cut you off. It's just as positive as you try to be, as positive as you're perceived to be is just difficult. You're on Facebook, you're scrolling, and all you see is people bombing each other. You see pictures of all types of just very, very negative things, and it's just it gives you a different outlook on life. Like what kind of world do we live in today? You know what I mean?
It does.
And there's some horrific stuff out there, and I mean, there's a lot of days. Seeing this stuff, there's some days it affects me more than others, and some days you just kind of have this hopeless feeling like, what's wrong with people? Why can't people get the idea of, love your neighbor as yourself through their head as opposed to be terrified of everybody? Let's just go blow up everybody that's like me so I'll be safe.
Right. And if the foreigners were as dangerous as everybody think they are, the few people that are, you'd be dead when people complain, that so-and-so. I hear people all the time complain about businesses, not all the time, but some people complain about businesses being overrun by foreigners or being run by the foreign guys in the street. If they were as dangerous as you thought, you'd already been dead. We're around foreigners and people, multiculturals all the time.
It needs to be just dangerous enough to keep you scared.
Right.
And if you're scared, you'll go along with anything.
Yeah, exactly. I understand that, and it's kind of that really bothers me is I'm actually Muslim myself, which is I mean, I was raised a Muslim. My dad's from Sudan, you know, but my mom, she's from Fort Worth herself, so I kind of got the best of both worlds, you know. But everybody just, I mean, my name is Fatim Muhammad, so you know, when I say my full name, everybody's just like, whoa, you're Arab, or that's not a common name, you know. I just hate that. I don't necessarily hate anything. It's just that I don't necessarily agree with the outlook that I get just from what, you know, the extremists, you know, the kind of thing like, you know, people look at me and they're like, oh, you're a terrorist, or oh, you're a bomb. Even though I don't look like it, you know, just my name, people are like, oh, well, you probably got a, you know, an uncle named Ahmed or something, you know, something crazy like that, you know, like, I mean, I don't want to necessarily say I had a hard life, but it's just the fact of trying to be validated with, you know, with yourself and the people that you grow up with, and, you know, bosses and you know, people just looking at the name on, you know, applications, things like that.
If your name was John Smith, you probably wouldn't have had the same experiences, maybe.
Exactly.
Now, has people been treating you different just since the Paris thing? Have people been interacting with you crazy? And
I mean, I get a lot of hostile, you know, situations, you know. But no, I mean, I'm 6'3", I'm 245 pounds. I'm a big
shoot!
boy.
That'd be as nice.
Yeah. I mean, but yeah, but I mean, it still doesn't. You know, even though people don't just come out and just, you know, bombard me with just all these racial slurs and all this stuff, you know, it's still like little slight things that I'll hear having a conversation with somebody, because I'm very educated, you know, and I'm very proper. So I'll have a conversation with somebody, and I can just, you know, key point little things that they say, try to, in some ways, being aggressive towards, you know, the fact of me saying, oh yeah, I am Muslim, or, you know, because I used to sell door-to-door security, and me going door, people will see my name badge and just slam the door in my face, you know. Not even giving me a chance to talk.
That's ridiculous. Yeah, you could have actually been the best salesman, and people could have actually been missing out on particularly a good deal. It's a shame that just there's something strictly that your name would give that impression. And in 2016, 2015, that's the world we're still living in. But you're not alone out there, man. And you're doing. We appreciate you calling in and actually trying to and letting us and telling us about that, because not everybody. You know, we talked about not everybody is on board and thinks the way that we do, and vice versa. That's a good thing. So,
yeah, thank you so much for calling in tonight and sharing your story with us. You know, I'm sorry for everybody out there right now that's having to deal with some garbage over people just being scared to death for no reason, because, you know, I guess they're cowards and people don't want to hear that. But that's what it really is. You know, well, they're going to come get me. I saw something bad on the TV. Like, that's what we're dealing with here. People need to grow up.
Yeah, and that's how, like he's doing now when he speaks to people, Muhammad, you change minds one at a time. So
that's all you can do, and that's all any of this is. It's all one person dealing with another person. That's it. You know, we don't have these huge blanketing, these, you know, everybody wants to judge this thing or that thing or this person or that person.
I literally actually, in a dialogue last week, somebody had thrown out, and it was a white Southern male, threw out the fact that he really felt that white males were under attack right now in society. We are under attack now.
Wow. Okay, on that note, we're running out of time for the evening. I want to make sure to tell everybody to join us live every Tuesday and Thursday evenings at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific. You can listen to us ucy.tv/TAMR. And always, you can listen to our replays on YouTube at ucy.tv's YouTube channel. That's it for tonight, gentlemen. We'll be back next week. Hopefully, the world will still be here. We won't have started World War III yet. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, buddy.
Shannon, as always.
Peace out, man.
Later, Gator.
For Anti-Media, this is SM Gibson, out.
Stereo. I'ma let them know through the stereo. Yo, here we go through the stereo.